cold and aloof, and that clearly hurt her case.
Lori was only 23. She was terrified. Many people may have misinterpreted her demeanor. At the conclusion of the 2-week trial, a jury retires to deliberate Lori Benbenek's fate.
The jury deliberated for 4 days, and they did return a verdict of guilty of first-degree murder. And Lori was given a life sentence.
She sat without movement, without emotion. I didn't see any tears. I saw nothing. She was stoic.
She tried her very best to tell the truth. She thought she didn't have anything to lose if she told the truth. And it all flipped on her.
Coming up, just as the case seems shut, Lori has other ideas.
They hatched a plan for her escape, a quote-unquote window of opportunity.
This slogan rose up, "Run, Bambi, run."
It was just unbelievable. I kept thinking, this isn't real. This can't be real.
On March 9, 1982, 23-year-old Lori Benbenek was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of her husband's ex-wife, Christine Schultz.
After Lori was convicted, Fred Schultz divorced her, moved to Florida, and he would later tell people that he was convinced she was guilty.
Christine's boys were raised by family.
For the next 8 years, the former police officer is housed at the Chichita Correctional Facility in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Lori filed several appeals. All of them were turned down.
Lori Benbenek always maintained her innocence and has asserted that she was set up, that she was framed, because she was no friend of the authorities at the Milwaukee Police Department.
Lori had lost all 3 of her appeals and was getting very frustrated.
On July 15, 1990, after 8 years behind bars, a new development occurs in Lori's case.
Benbenek spent 8 years in prison and then escaped.
It was on the news, and it was just unbelievable. I just kept thinking, this isn't real. This can't be real.
Police have reason to believe Lori isn't alone.
This is another very odd thing when somebody's convicted of murder and they're kind of infamous. And with someone like Lori Benbenek, who was beautiful, she had plenty of admirers, but she saw the brother of one of the women who was also serving in the same place, and she thought he was cute. His name was Dominic Gugliano. She flirted with him. He flirted back. When he came to see his sister, they spent time together and got engaged.
Unable to find Dominic, authorities pieced together how they believe he helped her escape.
In the laundry room, she saw a window that she thought she could get through. So she formed a plan with Dominic to help her escape. And he had prepared the getaway car and supplies.
A quote-unquote window of opportunity. She slipped through the window, crawled over the fence. She had a little jacket or something with her, threw it over the barbed wire.
She did cut her leg on the razor wire, but she was able to get through and ran to a waiting car, and he was there, and they were out of town in a matter of minutes.
She tried an appeal. She tried to do it the right way, and it was sort of discarded. It was like, I have to save my life. Nothing's working that's supposed to work.
When Lori escaped, the residents of Wisconsin said if they saw her, they would not turn her in because they agreed, she did not get a fair trial, and they were rooting for her.
One reason public sentiment shifted in Lori's favor is because her friend, Judy Zess, recanted her statements. Judy's testimony was important because she testified that she had seen the same bandana and jogging suit that Christine Schultz killer used in Lori's home prior to the murder. For the next 3 months, The former Milwaukee police officer and her lover remain on the lam.
America's Most Wanted was a TV show that would talk about cases of fugitives.
She was working in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And someone from America was there who had seen the show and recognized her.
Following her arrest, Lori Bembenek applied for political asylum in Canada.
She claimed there was no chance she was ever going to get a fair trial.
On April 22, 1991, Lori is extradited back to the U.S. under the condition that the Milwaukee courts re-examine her case.
When they did get her back, she was in solitary for a year. But then through that year, these attorneys worked on her case.
Lori's team exposes 7 irregularities in the original investigation.
The ruling judge found no evidence of a conspiracy by prosecutors, but he had significant problems with the handling of the off-duty gun and the bullets. So prosecutors decided to cut a deal.
Lori was offered a deal that if she pleaded no contest to second-degree murder, they would give her credit for time already served, and then she would be on supervised parole, but she could go free.
In 97, Lori had been released, and I think to have a more peaceful life, moved to Vancouver. It was a new start for her.
In about 2004, I finally got the courage to ask her to marry me after everything she'd been through. And we got married in 2005. We were only married for 2 years and had an amicable divorce.
As time passes, Lori's team, headed up by defense attorney Mary Ware and PI Ira Robbins, uncover new evidence that casts further doubt over Lori's earlier conviction.
Mary Ware calls for a complete, thorough investigation of the evidence from the case. And now DNA gets involved. So the thought is, we're going to re-examine all of this. It was circumstantial to begin with. Maybe this will change the whole atmosphere surrounding this murder conviction.
DNA evidence, presence of male semen, that our defense team knew nothing about, didn't come out until now. Clearly the fix was in. They wanted Lori convicted, and that's what they got.
The DNA evidence uncovered the fact that Christine Schultz had had sex with someone before her death. And Lori's legal team found previously unrevealed evidence that showed the state crime lab had initially investigated it as a sexual assault case.
They found blood underneath Christine's fingernails, which would suggest that there was some type of physical struggle with the attacker.
We didn't have DNA back then, but they did have blood analysis and a pretty sophisticated blood analysis. But they did not do that.
The purported murder weapon, Fred Schultz's off-duty .38 revolver, is also put through a battery of forensic and ballistic tests.
Lori's team had forensic experts test the gun and the bullet, and they found that there was no match from the off-duty gun to the bullet removed from Christine Schultz's body.
We end up with this chain of inconsistencies that calls into question the most damning evidence.
While Lori and her supporters are hopeful the new findings might clear her name, the emotional damage of the last 21 years takes its toll on Lori.
She wanted the Supreme Court to look at the new evidence so that she could withdraw the no contest plea to be entirely exonerated, but they declined to look at it.
In 2010, Lori Bembenek dies from kidney and liver failure, still fighting to clear her name.
Mary Weir, from what I know, is still working on things. I believe she has evidence now again that can clear her.
Hopefully someday justice will be done and her name will be cleared. But the clock is ticking. Everybody's getting older.
After 39 years, Lori Bembenek's arrest and conviction are still highly controversial.
We came up with enough physical evidence that we could arrest her. Everything eventually caught up to me.
I'm absolutely certain, deep down in my heart, my soul, and every bone in my body, that she is innocent.
Sandra completed the terms of her probation. She is now married and has a family of her own. After serving 25 years of her sentence, Sandra Jonas became eligible for parole in 2023. She was a flashy country girl who could love him and leave him.
Every man she came in contact with was mesmerized by her.
But a dashing stranger seemed to finally lasso her heart.
He was younger, he was handsome, he did everything in the world for her.
Their plans for the future were full of promise. Until a wild crime changes everything.
Lightning strikes, but people don't get shot in the middle of the road by coincidence.
As the investigation unfolds, long-kept secrets come to the surface.
She was gone and taking money out of her accounts and spending large amounts of money.
We determined that there were 2 other cases we had to look at.
He'd come up missing. A couple days later, they found his body floating.
Once you resort to murder, then there's nothing you wouldn't do to get what you want.
And before it's all over, a prisoner comes forward.
It never happened. Never happened. They tried to take everything and make it, but they won't.
April 14th, 1998, Corsicana, Texas. It's a quiet spring night as Officer Dustin Munn patrols the rural Texas town 55 miles south of Dallas.
It's still a rural community. I wouldn't classify it as suburban. It's just your typical old-fashioned small town.
At 11:22 p.m., Officer Munn gets an alert on his radio.
I've got a call of shots fired in the vicinity of West Park Road. It's kind of on the fringe of town. We responded to shots in the area fairly frequently. Usually someone's shooting at a varmint of some sort, skunk, possum. I certainly did not expect to find it.
As Officer Munn arrives, he makes an unsettling discovery. A car sitting in the middle of the road.
The vehicle was running, the headlights were on, the door was slightly open. As I exited my patrol vehicle, my first concern was for any occupants.
Officer Munn cautiously makes his way around the vehicle.
That's where I saw a big body laying there behind the vehicle. I immediately went to him to see what his status was, check to see if he needed medical assistance. It was obvious that he'd been shot multiple times.
On the man's chest is a name tag that reads Toby Matthews.
Mr. Matthews was not breathing. It was obvious that his wounds were incompatible with life.
Lamar, Colorado native Toby Matthews never had big city dreams. While his friends went off to college after high school, Toby stuck around, taking a job at the local bar, Opals.
Toby grew up in a small town. From all accounts, he was one of these people who, everybody knew him, everybody liked him.
It was at Opals one night in 1994 when he first got up the nerve to talk to 29-year-old Cynthia Phillips.
She always had fancy looks to her. Real country, but fancy. Kind of glamorous. With her curly blonde hair and the little cowgirl button-up shirts and those long fingernails. She stood out. I think she liked it that way.
To 25-year-old Toby, Cynthia was everything he wanted in a woman. Fun, flirty, and beautiful. For Cynthia, the feeling was mutual.
I know they spent a lot of time together. She seemed a lot happier. A lot of times that we'd see him just dancing in the kitchen or dancing in the living room with a country song playing.
Though the two hit it off immediately, Cynthia had a shocking confession to make.
She had a husband that she was married to.
When Cynthia Carrati met her future husband, Ron Phillips, in 1984, she was a mother of 2 children, looking for her happily ever after.
Ron Phillips became, I would say some people said smitten with Cynthia.
When I first met him, I thought, a very nice couple. And they got together and got married.
To support his new family, in 1993, Ron purchased a slaughterhouse and moved the family to the small town of Haswell, Colorado. Population 69.
They knew the proprietor of L&M Processing, and they knew he was going to get out of the business. So they made him an offer to purchase the plant. They had a good, thriving business. It's a pretty good endeavor, and it's hard work. I kind of admire her and Ron for taking it over.
But keeping the business afloat meant long hours away from home.
Ron worked all the time. Yeah, he was constantly working, and then when he wasn't, he was home with the kids and Cindy.
I don't think she was quite used to living in Haswell. There's nothing or hardly nobody there.
Though Cynthia tried to make the best of it, things weren't always easy.
She never really went that far into it. She just let me know that, yeah, he was abusive.
After she met Toby, Cynthia discovered what it was like to really be in love.
It didn't feel to me like a really close, intimate relationship when she was married to Ron. With Toby, she really loved that boy.
She would tell Ron that she was working and just go up and meet Toby. They were so much more cuddly, lovey-dovey.
In 1996, after 2 years of snooping around, Cynthia packed up her children and ran away to be with Toby.
She left Ron for Toby. They lived here in Lamar for probably close to a year, at which point they left and moved to Corsicana, Texas.
While Cynthia stayed home with the girls, Toby supported the family by working at a local Kmart, but made the most of his time at home.
He was a great guy, and the girls, anything that they needed, they got. He was a great provider.
I think they latched onto him real quick as another dad, and they really enjoyed being around him.
Then, in the fall of 1997, a friend of Cynthia's father named Rick Boyd reached out to Cynthia needing a place to stay.
Rick worked as an exterminator, so the justification for him moving in with Toby and Cynthia was to be able to split income and have a little bit easier of a life.
As the spring of 1998 rolled in, the happy couple discussed plans for finally tying the knot.
Every time I'd see them together, she'd be sitting on his lap, or they'd be kissing, giggling, and carrying on. They had a connection.
But Cynthia and Toby's plans to say I do came to a sudden halt. On April 14, 1998, when Corsicana police officer Dustin Munn finds Toby's body on the Borough Road.
Initially, they saw the bullet entranceway into his left foot, and then he had several other shots in the upper torso, chest area. I think maybe one on an elbow.
He had a bit of a stunned look on his face, whether that had been the person that committed that act or the circumstances in general. But the expression on his face was shocking.
Coming up, a strange visitor shakes up the crime scene.
He was fairly flat. I think we all saw it as somewhat suspicious.
and leads police to a potential theory.
The fact that you have two men living with one woman under one roof, that screams out to be investigated.
In the early morning hours of April 15, 1998, a rural road in Corsicana, Texas, is transformed into a crime scene as officers investigate the shooting death of 29-year-old Toby Matthews.
It's interesting when you respond on any death scene. There are things that you can intuitively gain from that immediate snapshot, and something just told me that he was stunned by what had happened to him.
As police survey the scene, they discover 7 9mm shells.
Police assume that there was some kind of altercation. You know, it's not uncommon to have a robbery that has gone wrong.
The victim still retained his identification, money that he had on him. There was no signs of anything being taken or known about being taken from inside the vehicle, and the vehicle itself was still sitting in the middle of the roadway running.
If robbery isn't the motive, perhaps another crime had taken place here.
It could have appeared that it was a drug deal in the middle of the road. It seemed reasonable at that time to at least create a theory that he was stopping for someone that he knew, given the location, the condition of the vehicle, and his position behind him.
A quick background check turns up no prior drug convictions for Toby Matthews.
We had no information at all that our victim had anything to do with narcotics in any way. So that did not seem plausible.
As investigators continue processing the crime scene, they're blinded by oncoming headlights.
An individual pulled up on the scene at one point, inquiring about the vehicle and if the person that was driving the vehicle was okay.
The man introduces himself as Rick Boyd. He says he is looking for his friend and roommate, Toby Matthews.
Toby had gone to the store to pick up some medication for a sick little girl that was in the house, and he was sent, supposedly, to check on his whereabouts. It was peculiar that he would just suddenly pull up.
Investigators break the tragic news that Toby is dead. Rick's reaction surprises them.
Rick's demeanor was not that of someone who suddenly rolled up and found out that his friend was deceased. A normal reaction would be immediate signs of grief. He was fairly flat. I think we all saw it as somewhat suspicious.
Rick told police that he had been living with Toby and his wife, Cynthia. So police then went with Rick to Toby and Cynthia's house to notify Cynthia that Toby had been killed.
Police and Rick find Cynthia at home and inform her of Toby's death.
She was visibly upset.
When Cynthia regains her composure, the investigator asks her about Toby's whereabouts in the hours before his death.
Toby had came home, and one of the girls were sick, and he was going to go get some medicine.
He was headed to the Kmart to pick up some cold medicine for Cynthia's daughter.
Cynthia says that the Kmart is just minutes from their house, so when an hour passed and Toby hadn't returned, she began to worry.
She couldn't find him. There wasn't cell phones and things like that, so he just had to come back from going to the medicine.
Cynthia says Rick left to go look for Toby while she stayed home to look after her daughters.
The next thing she remembers is Rick had come back and told her that Toby was dead.
Cynthia tells the investigator that she can't think of anyone who would want to harm Toby.
Mr. Matthews, as far as I recall, was very likable, amicable, hardworking individual who was trying to make a new start in Corsicana.
A quick talk with Cynthia's daughters confirms their alibi.
The daughter that was apparently sick had given a statement that she was not feeling well. Cynthia was there with her.
But police still can't dismiss Rick Boyd's strange reaction at the crime scene.
The fact that you have two men living with one woman under one roof, that screams out to be investigated. One theory was at the time that he was actually in love with Cynthia. The only way to get to her would be to get Toby out of the way.
The investigator asks Rick to come to the station for a formal interview.
His statement to the police officers was that Cynthia woke him up and told him that Toby had gone out to get the cough medicine and didn't come back.
When he is pressed about a possible relationship with Cynthia, Rick is adamant they have it all wrong.
Rick actually explains that they just had a long-standing relationship because he's a friend of her father's.
The statement that he gave, he didn't indicate that he had anything to do with it.
Investigators are so sure.
We thought Rick did it to be with Cynthia. When you look at love triangles, they don't work well, particularly under the same roof.
As investigators start to dig deeper into this potential love triangle, news of the murder begins to spread throughout town.
News travels fast in a small town, so everyone has an opinion. And as I recall, the department got several of those opinions fairly quickly.
Most of the calls come from Toby and Cynthia's friends back in Colorado, who all bring up Cynthia's estranged husband, Ron Phillips.
I noticed more growing up. I, started to realize she really wasn't as close to Ron. Ron and Cindy didn't get along a lot.
He was quick-tempered. I never saw him, grab her and smack her or, yelling at her.
Friends tell police that in March of 1995, a year before she ran away with Toby, Ron and Cynthia suffered a devastating house fire and came into an almost $16,000 insurance payout. That's when things started to fall apart.
They got to fighting. I don't know if she was getting frustrated with him having to work so much. It was kind of her fault that he was working so much.
According to friends, Ron and Cynthia's biggest marital issues seemed to revolve around one thing: money.
She was gone and figuring money out of the accounts and spending large amounts of money. She said she had to pick up this and this and this for the processor plant, for the house. She was kind of cleaning the money out of the bank accounts. The tension just got to be what was ridiculous. He would yell or just stomp off or slam things down.
According to friends, Cynthia would show up to Opal's bar covered in bruises.
I was told that they had some physical fights.
Coming up, a twisted theory emerges of jealousy, money, and revenge.
It's like this is about, he's like, you guys need to know this. He kind of had her both hurt. There's really just nothing she could do about it. She wanted to look like that, and she wanted
After the murder of 29-year-old Toby Matthews, investigators with the Corsicana Police Department have decided to take a closer look at his girlfriend Cynthia Phillips' past relationship with her ex-husband, Ron Phillips.
Law enforcement had heard the rumors of possible abuse that Cynthia Phillips was making against her husband.
According to friends, when Cynthia left Ron, he barely had a penny to his name.
He was run down so bad, and he got to where he started really, you could tell it was aging him really, really, really bad. He was starting to lose weight. His red hair wasn't so much red, it was starting to turn gray.
Friends believe that in Ron's eyes, thanks to Toby, he had lost his wife, his money, and his business.
The gossip, that's all everybody talked about. Everybody whispered, friends would say, hey, Ron, look at what's going on, honey. I don't have time for it. I'm too busy now. So he just kind of would push it under the rug.
But I know at the end he was getting upset.
Before police can reach Ron to get his side of the story, they call Cynthia and learn the rumor mill of small-town Corsicana had started to turn on her.
Corsicana is largely a conservative town. Most people attend church on Sundays. Everyone knows each other. There's an inherent tendency to talk. People started to have some suspicions.
According to Cynthia, rumors that she's involved in Toby's death were spreading around town.
News travels fast in small towns, so everyone has an opinion. And particularly, people raise eyebrows at those types of relationships. In a conservative small town, Cindy likely would have been ostracized almost immediately, or at least kept at arm's length from most anyone after coming to Corsicana. She would have been looked at with certain suspicion.
Now, hoping to set the record straight, Cynthia wants to talk to police once again.
She offered to take polygraph.
If you truly want to clear your name, that's a good way to get out in front of someone, particularly when you don't feel like you believe.
Cynthia schedules her polygraph for April 28th, 2 weeks after Toby's murder.
At that point, we really don't have a place to look until something comes forward. You get another lead. I mean, it's kind of a dead end right now.
But just a week before Cynthia's polygraph, the investigation takes a startling turn when a man named Billy Bear Slaughter calls the Kiowa, Colorado Police Department claiming to have information about the case.
He was obviously upset that this had happened to Toby. Him and Toby were best friends in Lamar, and he wanted to get justice for Toby.
I remember when we talked to the team, was like, this is enough. He's like, you guys need to know this.
On April 21st, 1998, investigators sit down with Billy Bear Slaughter.
To meet Billy Slaughter, you wouldn't think he was that bad of a character. But, he tried to portray himself as a rough hombre,
Cindy had met Toby and Lamar at a bar, and Bear frequented that bar.
Billy Slaughter gave us information about how she started spending more nights with him.
Bear says in March 1995, nearly 3 years before Toby Matthews' death, Cynthia had confided to him about her marriage with Ron Phillips.
She was still live with him until she was going elsewhere to come see Toby at the time.
Bear says that was when Cynthia asked him for a little favor.
She approached me because she heard from people who killed somebody. She wanted him to have full control.
According to Bear, Cynthia wanted the accident to occur at the couple's slaughterhouse.
She wanted his leg broken later on like
Bear tells detectives Cynthia offered him $10,000 up front and $10,000 after he completed the job.
He questioned her a lot, like, where are you getting this money? He knew enough about her that she doesn't have this kind of money. I don't see money.
Cindy Phillips said that she money coming from the insurance. She handed me $10,000 cash, $8,000 in bills, and $3,000 in bills.
When she paid him the money, it was like, well, maybe she does want him gone.
Bear said that if Cynthia thought he would kill her husband, she was mistaken.
I think she was obviously serious, but I don't know that he ever even considered it.
Still, Bear wanted to see for himself if Cynthia's accusations were true, so he followed Ron for weeks. But he didn't find what he expected.
I never saw him
get violent, ever. I never saw any marks. I never saw him hit her or do anything.
Law enforcement didn't find any basis for abuse allegations. Certainly no charges were ever filed on Ron.
One time, I saw the girl take his dog, grandmother, the dog being into her face like the other day. But Bruce, she had no one saw it. She's telling Joey that her husband Ron did that.
Bear tells police that's when he realized he was being set up.
It was determined that there wasn't any grain of truth to the rumors of possible abuse that Cynthia Phillips was making against her husband, Ron Phillips.
Bear was concerned because he knew what kind of person Cindy was and what she was capable of.
So Bear did the only thing he could think to do.
What's she gonna do? I mean, she can't go to Thornton. He kind of had her over her, got her money, and not gonna do what she wants to do. There's really nothing she could do about it.
Bear says before he skipped town, he told friends to warn Toby Matthews not to get mixed up with Cynthia.
The minute that he heard Toby died, he knew Cindy had a
Coming up, Bear's allegations are only the beginning of this twisted tale.
He didn't go to work one day, and a couple days later they found his body floating. She had multiple men armed with her. She's never been faithful to this one.
I don't understand. That's pure evil.
Billy Bear Slaughter, former friend of 33-year-old Cynthia Phillips, has just accused her of paying him to murder her ex-husband, Ron Phillips.
He told us the story of how Cynthia contacted him to kill Ron. Then things started clicking a little bit better. Bear wanted to make sure she paid for what she did to Toby.
Investigators decide to take a closer look at Bear's story. They begin by reviewing Cynthia and Ron's insurance records.
When they came to Colorado, they had life insurance on each other. And as the business progressed, they decided they needed more life insurance. They thought that the locker plan was a dangerous profession. So they figured that if anybody was going to get hurt or died in their business, they would make a double indemnity.
Cynthia and Ron obtained $250,000 worth of life insurance from a local agency. Had money been the motive for Cynthia's alleged murder for hire? And could Cynthia have tried the same scheme with Toby? To find out, detectives contact Cynthia's insurance agent in Corsicana, Texas.
She had a life insurance policy on Toby, too.
The agent confirms the policy was for $100,000, and 1 week after Toby's death, Cynthia had called to collect.
They're already talking distribution of funds for the insurance policy. So I think that's definitely your motive right there.
It all made sense.
But is Toby her only victim? Seeing a pattern developing, investigators decide to dig deeper into Cynthia's past, and they quickly discover another case out of Kansas involving her first husband, Les Conradi.
August of 1996 was the last time anyone saw him or talked to him.
He'd come up missing. He didn't go to work one day, and a couple days later they found his body floating.
Detectives reach out to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation and the Edwards County Sheriff's Department. Officers tell their fellow lawmen what they know about Les Conradi.
I knew him. He was in school when I was in high school. Les was very shy. He was not a talkative person. He got along with everybody.
Les and Cynthia started dating in 1982. At the time, Cynthia was still in high school and pregnant with another man's baby, though friends say that didn't deter Les one bit.
She was still young. She was only like 14, somewhere around there, whenever she met him and had the baby and got married. He wanted to take her, so it didn't matter what she did.
After Cynthia's daughter was born in March of 1982, the couple had a second child of their own. But by their 2-year anniversary, 17-year-old Cynthia had cheated on Les with Ron Phillips.
She doesn't care what anyone thinks. I think that kind of set the mindset for Cindy for future relationships that, well, if this one's not doing it for me, I'll go somewhere else.
The couple divorced in 1986, and Cynthia left with Ron for Colorado. But Les wasn't out of Cynthia's life just yet.
I think he was just scared that she was going to take off and he wasn't going to see those rest.
Cynthia spent years traveling back and forth to bring the girls to Les. But then, on August 22nd, 1996, Les suddenly disappeared from a local bar.
He got a phone call. The lady that was bartending, she remembered that it was a woman's voice on the other end of the line. She didn't know who it was. She gave the phone to Les. He talked for a few minutes, and then he left.
Kansas authorities say that the next day, when Les didn't show up for work, his parents filed a missing persons report.
He was missing, and I think there was something more than him wandering off on his own. There had to be more to it. Knowing him and his personality and his lifestyle.
The KBI says that they interviewed everyone close to Les, including Cynthia.
I'd say she was concerned. There wasn't anything alarming or anything that stood out in that conversation.
KBI investigators recall that after weeks of searching, they hit a dead end. Then, in September of 1996, they received a handwritten letter.
There was some mention there about, I thought you guys could figure it out. When I left last, he was at the bridge on Jewel Road.
Kansas authorities say it didn't take long to find Les's body in the water near Jewel Road.
They got the body out and it was taken for, autopsy. The cause of death was drowning.
Up until now, Kansas authorities have found no evidence linking Cynthia to Les's death. But in the wake of Toby's murder, authorities want to take a closer look.
When we determined that there were two other cases, one involving a missing former husband and another involving an attempted or murder for hire scheme, on top of our own circumstance, we immediately dubbed her the Black Widow.
KBI sends the letter they received off for fingerprint analysis. On April 28th, Cynthia arrives for her scheduled polygraph in Texas.
Did you shoot Toby? Did you kill him? Did you conspire with anyone to kill Toby Matthews? I mean, so it was a pretty comprehensive polygraph.
She thought she could beat it. She thought she could beat the polygraph. She didn't. She flunked it.
As Cynthia is read her results, officers from Kansas, Colorado, and Texas come into the room.
She was shocked when we walked in the door. You can tell by the look on her face. She had no idea we were going to be there.
First, detectives from Colorado confront her with Bear's statement.
She didn't really come up with a good answer for any of our questions. She denied the whole thing.
As for Toby's murder, Cynthia claims the reason she failed her polygraph was because she was covering for the true killer.
She says that she had nothing to do with Toby's death. She was putting it all in the report.
Detectives bring Rick into the station and confront him with Cynthia's story. Rick admits to being involved in the murder plot, but he says that it was all Cynthia's idea.
Toby was headed to the Kmart to pick up some cold medicine for Cynthia's daughter who was sick. That was the ruse that was used to get him away from the house. They flashed him over. Then he got out of the vehicle voluntarily to meet behind his vehicle. Cindy took the gun. She went over and shot him.
Rick took the gun from Cindy, so let's make sure he did.
Rick shot him in the head. So all the other ones were with Cynthia, but he actually shot him in the temple.
Rick is immediately placed under arrest for first-degree murder. As for Cynthia, even with Rick's confession, it's not enough to charge her with Toby's murder.
Texas law does not allow for conviction based on accomplice witness testimony alone.
While Texas authorities don't have enough evidence to arrest Cynthia, Colorado is another story.
We charged Cindy with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder for the attempted murder of Ron.
She was crying, but it was sadness for the fact that she had been caught.
Coming up, could a new witness be the break investigators are looking for?
This brought us crazy. And I'm in that with her.
She's a very dangerous individual.
And Cynthia Phillips tells her side of the story.
Guilty of anything of the first degree. That's absolutely.
In May 1998, Colorado authorities arrest 33-year-old Cynthia Phillips for plotting the murder of her ex-husband, Ron Phillips. She also remains the prime suspect in the murders of her first husband, Les Conradi, and her boyfriend, Toby Matthews.
If you look at the dictionary, the Black Widow, they defined it as the female spider that sucks all the life out of the male spider, leaves him for dead. I think we have a pretty good example of that right here.
It's just hard to believe that someone that you thought was fun, outgoing, and loving could do something so gruesome.
As Cynthia sits in a Colorado jail, prosecutors in 3 different states struggle to build a case against her, starting with the mysterious letter Kansas authorities received 2 years earlier.
The day that Les' body was found, Kansas Bureau of Investigations got a letter in the mail describing where they could find Les' body.
If there was no crime, why didn't you call in immediately? Or when you heard that he was missing, why did they send it?
In September 1998, investigators in Kansas received the analysis of the letter.
I give you 3 guesses and his fingerprint showed up on that.
Ultimately, those fingerprints were determined to be for Cynthia Phillips.
The only money I see is Social Security for the kids. Should have getting $1,200 a month for those 2 girls.
Investigators theorized that when police didn't find Les's body fast enough, Cynthia decided to give them a hint. After all, if there was no body, there weren't any death benefits.
In this job, one thing I don't believe in is coincidence.
And though Cynthia's fingerprints on the note are compelling, it's not enough to charge her with Les's murder.
I just don't think there's any physical evidence it's going to take her talking or someone else.
Then, on April 29, 1999, investigators receive a phone call from Cynthia's cellmate in Colorado, a 23-year-old woman named Amanda Packard.
I was sitting in jail with a murderer. I shouldn't have been there. He didn't commit a violent offense like murder. I just said, I'm either going to have to leave me out of this cell, or we're going to have to do something different, because I'm not going back to that cell. This brought us crazy.
Amanda tells police that when she was sent to the county jail for a misdemeanor charge, she met and bonded with Cynthia.
Cindy was missing her kids too. She had 2 small girls. And so, yeah, she was kind of being motherly at first.
However, Amanda tells police that Cynthia quickly started to confide in her about the murder of Toby Matthews in Corsicana.
She said she didn't want to be a Toby, but she needed money. Her and Rick needed money to go wherever they wanted to go. And so the best thing to do is take out life insurance on someone.
Amanda says that Cynthia confessed to gunning Toby down outside of his car on April 14, 1998.
She bragged like it was nothing, like baking a cake or winning $20 on the lottery. She thought she was going to get that life insurance policy on Toby, and her and Rick were going to split. And then Rick would have probably been the next victim later down the road. I don't even know how much evil can live in one tiny little body.
She's a very dangerous individual. Once you resort to murder, then there's nothing you wouldn't do to get what you want.
After Manda passes a polygraph test, prosecutors finally have the evidence they need to charge Cynthia with first-degree murder in Texas on July 22, 1999.
It's some relief because at least you can tell the family that it's a little bit of closure for the family.
In October 2000, Cynthia's trial in Corsicana begins. Faced with testimony from Rick and Manda, Cynthia's lawyer's strategy is to attack Rick's credibility.
They questioned Rick extensively on his. So one of the main things I remember from the trial is they really went into him about his changing story. I testified in court, telling everything that I knew about Cindy, and her looking at me, just shaking her head, and looking at me with dead black eyes, like she was going to get me.
Just as the jury is about to return with a verdict, the prosecutor interrupts the proceedings.
Right before the jury was to come back in and say guilty or not guilty, they made a plea bargain. 60 years, and then it was over. She pled guilty.
Cindy looked really worn down. She looked kind of withered, really sad. She just didn't know what else to do.
The most lasting memory for me would probably be the day that I hauled her off to the Department of Corrections. I figured she got what she deserved.
Today, Cynthia Phillips is housed in an all-women facility in Texas. Despite her plea deal 20 years earlier, she maintains her innocence.
It never happened. Never happened. They tried to take everything and make it what they wanted to make it. They made a big mess. They put 2 people in prison. They didn't do this for a month or something. It's never been a secret that I've had multiple men all my life. Phillips, I'm guilty of anything of the first degree. And all those that have said bad things against me, life, I forgave a long time ago because I'm not going to sit in here and hate on people. I believe justice one day will be served.
But if you ask others, they'll tell you Cynthia is exactly where she needs to be.
She's evil. She's probably the evilest person I've ever seen in my law enforcement career.
Whenever the flying net is dead, she just lifts it out and goes on to the next with no remorse, no feeling.
In addition to her murder charge, Cynthia was also found guilty of soliciting the murder of Ron Phillips and was sentenced to 24 years in prison. Due to this additional conviction, she will not be eligible for parole until 2045. Rick Boyd pleaded guilty and received a 60-year sentence. He will be eligible for parole in 2028. Les Conrad's murder remains unsolved. For more information on Snapped, go to oxygen.com.
Hi, Snap listeners. We are bringing you a special bonus episode today from Oxygen's hit series, Snapped Killer Couples. You can also watch full episodes on demand on the free Oxygen app or on Peacock by clicking the link in our description. Enjoy.
They were a military couple building a family together.
He wanted to marry her. He was ready to be there for her and the baby.
She loved the idea of having a whole family with him.
But a violent crime would destroy their chance at a happy ending.
There was what appeared to be gunshot wounds to her chest area. A staged crime scene indicates that the subject had a plan to commit the crime and had a plan to make an effort to confuse the investigation.
The search for the killer will stretch across state lines and unearth a myriad of criminal and secret love affairs.
She was maybe harboring some type of hope that she could have her to herself.
They certainly are red flags that there is some sort of danger in this relationship.
If he could not have her, he was going to kill her.
It was the worst emotional and physical pain that I have ever felt in my life. It's soul crushing.
Southern Maryland is a quiet suburban community nestled within the bustling metropolis of Baltimore and Washington, D.C.
Fort George Meade, Army base. It's been there for, a very long time. The base is quite a large base these days. Severn is sort of the community that surrounds the base. A lot of people that work in the Army and the armed forces live in that community.
But just before 8 a.m. on August 25th, 2015, the usual Tuesday morning calm is disturbed when the Anne Arundel County Police receive a call from a concerned maintenance man at the Lake Village Townhomes.
A maintenance worker in a townhome community had discovered an open sliding rear door of a townhome. It was just odd. I don't think the maintenance worker had any indication of who was inside, but clearly recognized something wasn't right. Thought that it was best that the police check it out. The Anne Arundel County Police arrive. They find an open door with no one answering. So initially, they don't know what they're dealing with. Did someone just leave a door open? Is this some sort of robbery? Is it something else? Is anyone there? Is anyone hurt? Does anyone need assistance?
The residence itself was like a townhouse without a basement, 2 stories, ground level, and then a second story where all the bedrooms were. They decided to go ahead and enter the apartment to check to see if anything was going on. The responding officers started to clear the downstairs area and then they went upstairs.
When we went at the upstairs of the townhouse, they looked at the master bedroom and we saw a body lying on the floor.
It was apparent that the woman was deceased.
Upon closer inspection, the officer realizes there's a second victim.
As not only was the adult female lying prone on the floor, the infant child was cradled in her arms. When the officer moved closer to the individuals, the baby made some movement, some sound. The officer was relieved that the child was alive.
He picked up the child and brought her outside to the paramedics for, immediate assessment.
Detectives are immediately called to the scene.
The victim was on the ground. There was what appeared to be gunshot wounds to her chest area. Obviously, the consideration was that this was likely a homicide situation.
When I responded to the crime scene, there's numerous police cars and members of the military responded to the crime scene, specifically Sergeant McDaniel.
A detective came over to talk to me, and I'm like, I have 2 female soldiers that live in that apartment. What's going on?
Sergeant McDaniel informs detectives that the residence belongs to 24-year-old Army Specialist Harlan Ramirez.
Sergeant McDaniels also informed us that there was another adult female roommate that lived in the apartment, that her name was Marissa.
He also stated that he knew the roommate, Marissa, was away on vacation.
He was concerned because Carlin hadn't arrived at work that morning.
Based on Sergeant McDaniel's statement, detectives believe the woman inside the townhome is Carlin. I woke up to my phone just ringing over and over. There was a police officer on the phone, and I knew
if something bad happened. And all I could ask was, is she okay? And she told me no.
During the investigation of Carlin's murder, we resolved into her victimology.
Growing up in Del Rio, Texas, Carlin Ramirez always understood the value of family and tradition from a young age.
Carlin's family was very important to her. She always had nothing but awesome stories to tell me.
She went to college for a few years, got her associate's degree, and then decided that the military would probably be a better fit for her. I think mostly because our mother was in the military when she was younger, right before she had my sister Carlin. And then, of course, her aunt was also a retired veteran from the military. So she saw it as my family did it, maybe it's a good fit for me.
She wanted to see the world. She wanted to help people. She just had this hunger and this drive to want to do better and want to be better and want to make the world a better place for everybody.
When she deployed to South Korea in 2013, Carlin met the man who would change her life forever. 35-year-old chemical weapons specialist Malik Kirby.
In the military, he was highly regarded and highly decorated for the work that he did. He earned several awards and was well thought of by his colleagues in the military. And he took great pride in his military service.
Malik was a lot older and more mature. Carlin just thought that physically he was very attractive. She would tell me she liked the way that he held his confidence. He was a very independent, very confident man. He really knew what he wanted. She fell completely head over heels for him.
Malik also fell in love with the beautiful 22-year-old Carlin. After nearly 6 months of dating, it was clear to friends and family that the relationship had grown serious.
She got home for Thanksgiving for the first time, and then she was like, hey, I have a surprise. I'm pregnant.
Shortly after, Malik proposed, and Carlin readily accepted. Before the couple had time to get married, however, Carlin was reassigned to Fort Meade, Maryland.
Malik was supposed to come over to Fort Meade with Carlin so they could be together and continue the relationship, but his orders were denied.
He was sent to South Carolina while she was still pregnant, and she was living in Maryland.
On April 23, 2015, Malik joined Carlin in Maryland for the purpose of their job.
We walked in, and you just saw the biggest smile on Carlin's face and how proud she was of her sweet little precious daughter, and just was so ecstatic to show her off.
3 months later, Carlin and Malik tied the knot before new military rules were enforced that would prohibit their relationship.
They got married mid-July in South Carolina. Someone got ordained and married them very quickly.
Their rush to get married was because she was a lower enlisted soldier, he was a senior, and they had a timeline where they had to put something on paper before it was not allowed. November of the year they got married is when that rule changed.
She was just so happy. She was happy with her baby. She was happy with her man. She was happy that he wanted to build a family, take care of both of them.
By August 2015, Carlin had returned to work. She and Malik began making plans for him to join her in Maryland. But just a few weeks later, all their dreams for the future come crashing down in an instant when police discover Carlin's lifeless body inside her home.
In that bedroom, the bedding had been pulled off on the ground near where the victim was laying. It was clear that some sort of confrontation had occurred. When we first looked at the victim, her underwear and shorts had been sort of pulled down. The underwear was around her knees area.
There was slight bruising on her,
as well as scratches. We do have to consider the possibility that this was a sexual assault.
Coming up, the search for a killer leads police to confront someone close to the victim. So, what he told but a scandalous revelation will change the course of the investigation.
There was some talking between them, seeing each other kind of in secret.
Detectives in Southern Maryland are investigating the shooting death of 24-year-old Army Specialist Carlin Ramirez. Carlin was found on the floor of her bedroom, cradling her 4-month-old daughter, who was left unharmed.
This murder shocked the community, as well as just completely surprised and devastated her family.
It was the worst emotional and physical pain that I have ever felt in my life. It weighs of how it felt that day, and it's soul crushing.
At the crime scene, Carlin's body is removed by the coroner for autopsy, and detectives collect crucial evidence.
There was actually one bullet that was laying on the floor. In relatively short order, firearms experts from Anne Arundel County were able to determine that those bullets were fired from a .357 caliber bullet.
As we continue to search the crime scene, we located a condom wrapper in the living room on the main level. And in the trash can not far from the condom wrapper, we located a condom.
These things were all collected as evidence, and certainly added to the possibility that some sort of sexual assault had occurred. We know that we have a forensic process to look into that, which would be done during the autopsy.
Hoping to gather more information about Carlin, detectives questioned her supervisor, Sergeant Leroy McDaniels.
Sergeant McDaniels told me that her husband, Millie Kearney, was actually stationed in South Carolina in Fort Jackson, and they were physically separated due to their different military assignments.
But Sergeant McDaniels revealed that life for the newlyweds was not as blissful as expected. Detectives learned that a month earlier, Carlin had called with surprising information.
I received a phone call at night from Carlin and Malik expressing that Carlin had developed a physical relationship with another soldier.
Malik, he was enraged upon learning about Carlin's affair. He forced her to report it to the line of command because it's one thing that's not allowed.
Sergeant McDaniel tells detectives that he was required to report the extramarital affair, which carried a stiff penalty under the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
That subsequently led to a reduction in rank and loss of pay for both Ms. Ramirez and the other service members.
My sister was stripped of everything that she earned because of what she did. She was not proud of herself for it. Like, it made her feel terrible because it's not who she was as a person.
According to Sergeant McDaniel, after the demotion, Carlin and Malik's relationship only continued to spiral.
Once you made her report herself, she did still try to stick it out, but he got more obsessive and more demeaning toward her.
Ultimately, Carlin asked Malik for a divorce.
He would call her constantly, trying to convince her to stay. Don't leave, don't leave.
She's like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this for me. I don't want this for my baby.
Carlin Ramirez requested a no contact order be issued by the Army against Malik Kearney. Malik Kearney was to have no further contact, directly or indirectly, with Carla Ramirez.
She put in the no contact order, so he wouldn't just open her house. She didn't want to deal with it. I'm done. Done with the whole relationship.
Armed with this new information, detectives head to South Carolina to speak with Carlin's husband on August 27th.
Before we arrived there, his commanding officer and chaplain advised Malik that Carlin had passed away, but they did not say what had happened to Carlin.
When detectives sit down with Malik, he appears devastated.
Malik seemed upset and he cried. And he said that he would cooperate with the investigation.
So, why can't you tell us about her? Okay, let me let them tell you. First,
Malik would ask family members and his friends to contact Carlin to try to convince her to work on their marriage. It was having the opposite effect, that she was becoming annoyed with his behavior.
But Malik swears he would never harm the mother of his child. When detectives ask Malik about his whereabouts the day of Carlin's murder, he provides an alibi.
Sergeant Kearney indicated that he was at home, alone, and had not left his apartment from the time he returned from Fort Jackson Post on the 24th of August until he left to report for duty at Fort Jackson on the 25th.
It would have been a lengthy travel. Does him being at work both days make it so that it was impossible for him to have done this? Those are the questions that we were confronted with.
Before releasing Malik, detectives request his cell phone, and he quickly complies.
Malik also offered that we could search his car, we could search his apartment, and allowed us to take DNA samples of him. A search of his car didn't reveal anything of value. I checked his GPS and did not see any recent addresses in there.
While detectives send Malik's phone for forensic examination, they next set their sights on the man with whom Carlin had become romantically involved.
We learned that not only was she involved with her estranged husband, Malik Kearney, she was involved in an inter-office romance with another soldier who was married.
He's married, she's married, and so at least we have to look at him to find out if he had some motivation to possibly kill Carlin.
When detectives receive the forensic results from the condom collected at the crime scene, their suspicions only continue to grow.
Ultimately, we discovered that his DNA was found on part of the condom.
In Southern Maryland, detectives have discovered that 24-year-old Carla Ramirez was having an affair prior to her murder. The day after her body was discovered, detectives attend her autopsy.
The post-mortem examination concluded that Carla Ramirez was shot
3 times. Any one of those shots would have been fatal, but 2 of the shots were in her chest area. All 3 were contact wounds. In this case, the post-mortem examination made clear that there was no sexual assault immediately prior to her death.
The victim's underwear pulled down around her ankles. It indicates a staged crime scene. The person who committed the crime was very methodical and was trying to throw investigators off of their scent. Points away from a crime of opportunity or robbery gone wrong to a very much premeditated crime.
Detectives immediately track down Carlin's lover and bring him in for questioning.
We went back and we spoke with Carlin's co-working individual that she had a relationship with. That individual was devastated to learn about Carlin's passing. He was overcome with emotion.
The sergeant told the police that he wasn't angry at Carlin, and actually the pair had been continued to see each other even after they were promoted. There was still some talking between them and seeing each other kind of in secret.
When detectives confront the man with the DNA evidence, he tells detectives that the last time he saw Carlin was August 23rd, 2 days before she was found murdered.
We did learn that he visited Carlin on Sunday evening. He actually lived nearby. They had an intimate encounter. That encounter, according to him, was, consensual encounter. We knew from Carlin's roommate that they were dating, and Carlin had sought a babysitter that evening for the baby.
The man tells detectives that the condom found in Carlin's trash can was thrown out after they were together on August 23rd.
He was extremely cooperative. He was forthcoming in his relationship with her. He provided his cell phone that he used to correspond with Carlin. He allowed us to search his car. He allowed us to search his living quarters.
He wanted to assure us that he had nothing to do with the death.
When detectives pressed the man about his whereabouts the day before Carlin was found, he claims he was at home all night.
He turned his cell phone over and he consented to a polygraph. He did very well in the polygraph and did not show deception during the polygraph. His cell phone showed his phone was not anywhere close to Carlin.
We couldn't develop any evidence that he left his house that night to go to Carlin's house.
His alibi checked out. They determined him to be truthful in terms of what he said, so they were able to eliminate him as a suspect.
Just when detectives think they've hit another dead end, a new lead surfaces.
While going through Carlin's cell phone, I also learned that she recently met another individual who was in the military, but in a different state. However, Carlin recently started to date this individual. On August 24th, the day before we discovered Carlin murdered, I saw that there was communication in Carlin's phone that she was texting, asking him to spend some time with her.
Detectives immediately contact the individual and bring him in for questioning. He explains that he had hooked up with Carlin a week earlier.
Carlin and I decided to go to Virginia Beach to visit my family. There's a night that we decided to have a girls' night, a mom's night out. Carlin was fearless. She went on the dance floor and had a dance off with some guy. He was actually an old high school friend. They hit it off. They ended up exchanging numbers and they text back and forth.
He confirmed that 2 days before they were together. The two decided to have dinner, and they were intimate at that time. Carlin texted him the next day and wanted him to come back to be together again. He declined.
Carlin was seeking companionship. She was very far away from her family, and her roommate was also out of town. And she seemed to be a little little lonely.
The second paramour was extensively interviewed. He was found to be truthful. It was determined both from his cell site information from his telephone as well as his account of the events of the 24th of August. He was not anywhere near Severn, Maryland at or about the time of her death.
With the investigation at a standstill, detectives revisit Malik Kiernan as a possible person of interest. They comb through his cell phone records to confirm his whereabouts the night of Carlin's murder.
As investigators accumulated data from the various service providers, they ascertained that Sergeant Kearney's telephone was indeed present in South Carolina on the evening of the 24th into the morning of the 25th of August 2015. They were able to identify the closest cell towers to his apartment, and it appeared to investigators that his phone was in or nearby his apartment at all times.
But when detectives receive the forensic results on Malik's cell phone, they discover something alarming.
There was an application which was deleting data from the phone.
We determined by evaluating his cell phone that this wipe app was active during the time of the murder, and more so the next day, which was the day that Carlin was discovered. Having a wipe app installed on your phone the day that your wife is murdered is very suspicious.
Coming up, as detectives zero in on their primary suspect, another affair comes to light.
Their relationship was very intimate and powerful almost.
They were pointing the finger at her that she was the person who actually killed Carlin Ramirez.
It's been 2 days since police in Severn, Maryland discovered Carlin Ramirez dead from an apparent homicide. So far, her estranged husband, Malik Kiernan, has had a solid alibi. But when detectives begin breaking down his cell phone records, they discover he had installed an app that was deleting data from his telephone.
Most of the data had been wiped clean from his phone, but forensic investigators were able to recover certain bits and pieces.
We learned through phone records that there were a tremendous amount of communication, text message and calls to a person labeled Dodo.
When we did the research on that number, we were able to realize that it belonged to a woman named Dolores Delgado.
Detectives learn that Dolores is a 30-year-old Army veteran living in Merritt Island, Florida.
Dolores Delgado was originally from New Mexico. She'd been in the military and apparently served at least a tour in Iraq.
She had since moved to Florida after her departure from the military to pursue a career in the medical field.
Hoping to learn more about Dolores' connection to Malik, detectives traveled to Florida to confront her.
I responded to Dolores' apartment and I introduced myself. Her response was to the effect of, "Oh, do you want to talk to me about Malik?" And I told her, "Yes, I do want to talk to you about Malik, actually." She agreed to accompany us to a local police station where we could learn more about her and interview her.
Detectives sit down with Dolores and ask her to elaborate on her relationship with Malik. She starts by telling detectives that their relationship began in 2008, 6 years before Malik met Carlin.
Dolores told me that she had met Malik while they were deployed together overseas. She and Malik had been involved in an on-again, off-again relationship over several years. They would seek each other out during different training and try to keep in touch through Facebook and text messages. And
and they often would visit each other depending on where they were.
Dolores Delgado described her relationship with Kearney as being very complicated. She was aware that he had other women in his life, and she also had other men in her life.
But Dolores claims she never wanted to come between Malik and his wife Carlin.
Dolores stated that Malik was trying very hard to get back with his wife Carlin, and that she was actually providing relationship advice so that they could succeed in the marriage.
When detectives broke the news that Carlin had been killed, Dolores appears shocked.
When she was confronted about what happened, did she know anything about the murder? She said no, she didn't know about the murder. She didn't have anything to do with it. She denied any responsibility or any knowledge.
Dolores tells detectives that she had been with Malik on August 24th.
She said that night of the murder, she was at his apartment and she said he was there.
I asked her if Malik borrowed her car, and she said that Malik had not, that Malik was asleep in the bedroom.
As detectives hear Dolores' statement, they must consider one glaring detail from the lead.
Telling the police that she was with Malik, that contradicts what Malik had said. He had told police that he had been alone that night.
Before releasing Dolores, detectives seize her phone. As they scour the explicit messages, they come across one from Malik that raises major concern.
While reviewing the text messages of Dolores' phone, there was a text message exchange prior to where Malik texted her and said, "This gun is so dang loud."
The revelation that Dolores and Malik had been discussing a gun prompts detectives to dig further into Dolores' digital history. They start with her social media accounts.
And looking at the social media postings recovered from Dolores Delgado's phone, they saw reference to her proposed sale of .357 caliber ammunition. Investigators were aware that the murder weapon was a .357 caliber revolver.
The ammunition included a photograph of a price tag and the name of the business where the ammunition came from. We contacted that store and learned that, in fact, Dolores had previously owned a .357 handgun.
We had linked Carlin Ramirez's death to that gun. We had linked that gun to Dolores Delgado, so she purchased it. And we had the text messages from Malik Kearney, Dodo, that gun is so damn loud. It was a critical compilation of evidence.
As the investigation was going on, we found out that Malik Kearney had moved from Fort Jackson and sought a transfer to Texas. And we found shortly after that, Dolores Delgado moved to the same area of Texas. So we realized they were together, they were in close proximity, and felt that we needed to take action quickly.
In October 2016, authorities arrest Dolores Delgado and Malik Kearney in San Antonio, Texas.
Grand jury returned an indictment against Malik Kearney and Dolores Delgado for interstate travel to commit domestic violence resulting in the death of Carlin Ramirez and the use of a firearm in her death. The arrest of Malik Kearney and Dolores Delgado made national news. The national news coverage benefited investigators significantly because it caused a witness to come forward in Florida who knew Dolores Delgado.
The witness claims that Dolores had asked him for help discarding a gun in late August 2015.
He said they disassembled a revolver, attempted to destroy the serial number on that revolver, and then threw the parts of the gun into the water off this fishing pier.
The witness leads detectives to the Banana River where he claims Dolores disposed of the gun.
Fortunately, it was not too deep in that area, so 4 pieces were recovered.
The FBI lab were able to establish that it was, in fact, the same serial number of the revolver that Dolores had purchased from that gun shop. They were able to take the barrel from that gun and actually attached it to a new gun to conduct test fires. Bullets that were fired down that barrel bore the same signature marks of the bullets that were recovered at the scene.
Detectives noted evidence seemingly solidifies their case against Dolores Delgado. But without police cooperation, authorities fear they'll face a he said, she said at trial.
I 100 believe that they needed each other to complete this. I don't think that either one of them would be courageous enough to pull the trigger by themselves. They did it because they had each other, and when it came down to it, if they had to, they could blame each other, which is exactly what happened.
In October 2016, investigators had arrested Dolores Delgado and Malik Cuny for the criminal murder of 24-year-old Carmen Ramirez. Hoping to solidify their case against Malik, authorities decided to give Dolores an opportunity to come clean.
When we spoke with Dolores Delgado, we gave her a snapshot of the evidence that we had accumulated against her because we believed that she was an accessory, a critical part of the crime, but we did not believe that she pulled the trigger to execute the crime. We believed Malik Cuny did that. She agreed to tell the truth, and she agreed to testify against Malik Cuny if necessary.
As detectives listen, Dolores offers a full confession. She tells them that on the afternoon of August 24th, she arrived at Malik's apartment according to his direction.
Dolores provided the firearms, the ammunition, and her vehicle. Malik asked Dolores to stream movies and use his cell phone while he was gone, so it appeared that he was home the whole time, providing an electronic alibi. He then took Dolores' car and drove to Maryland.
According to Dolores, when Malik returned to the apartment early the next morning, he gave her a play-by-play of the murder.
Malik described to her he let himself inside Carlin's house by using a key that he already had and was met by Carlin, and he forced her to go upstairs. Dolores said that Malik told her that while he was there that Carlin tried to fight him and tried to fight the Democrat, and his first shot missed her, and the rest of his shots ended up hitting her.
We pulled down her underwear and took off her pants to make it look like there was some sort of sexual assault. Placed the baby in her arm and we headed out the back door. I think Dolores was maybe harboring some type of hope that if Malik killed his wife, that somehow he would come back to her, that she could have him to herself. The nature of the relationship is difficult to understand. Was toxic in such a way that together they were planning later of careers.
Dolores Delgado entered a plea of guilty to conspiracy to commit interstate travel to commit a crime of violence against Palma Ramirez. That guilty plea was accepted by the court, and then we prepared for trial against Malik Kearney alone.
On July 16, 2018, the trial against Malik Kearney begins in federal court in Baltimore. The prosecution's star witness is Dolores Delgado.
Dolores' testimony was very powerful to the jury. It showed essentially this control that he had over women. In this case, they wanted this control over Carly. He truly didn't want anybody else to have Carly, and that she wasn't giving in, so he decided to kill her.
Despite Malik's defense team attempting to shift blame solely to Dolores, on August 9, 2018, the jury sides with the prosecution.
Malik Kearney was found guilty by the jury of both counts. Interstate travel to commit domestic violence against his wife, Palma Ramirez, and that violence resulted in her death, as well as the use of a firearm in that domestic violence charge, causing the death of Palma Ramirez. Malik Kearney was sentenced to life without parole, plus 10 years. Dolores Delgado was sentenced to 17 years by the court.
It really is a terrible thing. It's a pain you have to live with forever. We never forget. It's changed all of our lives. It's dimmed all of our lives a little bit. When people bring her up and they have memories about her, of course we love to hear it. We talk about it too. It's the way that we keep her alive.
She always brought out the best in people. And I know every day the way I choose to treat people is because of how loving and thoughtful she was toward me. She was an outstanding person, outstanding mother, friend, sister, best friend, soldier.
A bizarre incident on a remote highway shocks investigators.
I wanted friends to our house. So I ran in a car, ran on foot, so in a car, they just at our house.
We opened up the door to the car. We noticed that she was blue. She had massive trauma from a shotgun blast. At the moment, you're thinking, okay, this is obviously a homicide.
As investigators piece together the victim's past, a sordid web of unrequited love and jealousy unravels.
She was completely obsessed.
She certainly manipulated all these people. I don't know what power she held over these people.
But simmering under the surface is an even darker tale of lust, lies, and betrayal turned deadly.
This is quite literally insane. Everyone's sleeping with each other.
She actually talked them to the act together, and she flipped out.
She was livid, and then soon after that started getting threatening phone calls. The perfect storm of evil.
February 19th, 1996. It's a cold, quiet evening in Montville, Michigan. Until just after 8:30 p.m. when an alarming call for help reaches Michigan State Police officers.
911, someone just ran into our house. So I ran in a car, ran on foot, so in a car, they just ran into our house. Was anybody injured? Yes. How many people in the car? How many people are injured? One. Are they conscious and alert?
We were the closest, most available car, so
we started heading that way.
When we got there, it was just bumped up against the front porch. There was no damage to the car, as far as collision covered.
Though the vehicle appears unscathed, a closer look reveals the driver wasn't as lucky.
We opened up the door to the car, and she was still in the driver's seat. Well, we noticed that she was blue. I'm trying to figure out why she's blue.
We could see right away that this crash didn't involve the type of impact that would cause somebody to die from the injuries involved in the actual impact of the house. You're starting to think of, okay, is this medical related, drug related?
The ambulance was right behind us as we pulled in there, so the ambulance attendants got her out and took her to the back of the ambulance and tried to do CPR on her. There was no response.
So as the paramedics are working on her, she is completely unresponsive. She's not moving. We found her purse in the vehicle, and we could identify her as Carol Knapp of Montville.
Her house was not very far away. It's probably 2 or 3 miles, if that much. They were trying to figure out what they had.
We had to really break down the incident as far as what had caused her to come off the roadway. We needed to figure out what happened.
Born in 1967, Carol Sunny grew up in rural southern Michigan.
Her stepfather and mom owned a big Christmas tree farm, so she helped out there, rode 3-wheelers, and she was just an all-American girl. She was a very friendly girl. She was a lot like me, and that was kind of shocked them to death when we spoke about anything.
Following high school, 18-year-old Carol began working at a factory. Outside of work, she turned heads with her stunning beauty.
Pretty, tall, thin, and well-built, dark brown eyes, very pretty girl. She was a big pet lover. She was a country girl.
Carol dated around. She had several boyfriends, but never really was serious with anybody. That is, until she met Gary Knapp.
They both worked at the same factory, and they met, and the kind of history from there.
Gary was a long-haul truck driver, as many people are from this area. And he was a rugged guy, outdoorsy. They kind of shared similar interests there. Her family was happy to see Carol finally settling down with a man, but they did have their reservations. We were concerned because Gary was married to a woman named Lori.
Lori and Gary were married, and then Carol had an affair, and anyway, that whole situation broke up.
With Carol now in his life, in November of 1994, Gary put divorce proceedings on the fast track to end his 4-year marriage to Lori.
It only took a few months for Lori and Gary to have their divorce finalized, and that quickly escalated Carol and Gary's relationship. They got married on Valentine's Day in 1995.
He was very, very sweet to her, very caring. Gary would cook for her, and they had a lot of pets, and they had a good time doing that, and they would go places and do things.
When Gary wasn't on the road, he and Carol hung out with friends from the trucking community.
One of Gary's best friends was Ron Hofstetter, and they both knew each other because they were both long-haul truck drivers, and they started to bring their wives around, Gary bringing Carol and Ron bringing his wife, Lisa.
While Ron and Gary had already been friends for years, their lives sparked a friendship of their own.
Gary and Lisa and Carol and all of them are going to parties, and I think that it just all become easy, and they live fairly close together.
Lisa's family owned a septic pumping company, and I think they installed dry wells and septic tanks, and maybe did some excavation work. She had 2 sisters. I think they were kind of unscrabbled northern Indiana people.
It was a friendship that really took off. They clicked almost immediately. They shared similar interests. Both of their husbands were truck drivers. They were able to really talk about anything.
By the time she and Carol became friends, Lisa and Ron were well past the newlywed stage.
Lisa was a stay-at-home mom to her two kids with Ron, and they even took in foster kids here and there. And so she was a very typical, loving, stay-at-home mom.
As a respite from the road and raising their kids, Ron and Lisa often blew off steam with Gary and Carol.
On the weekends, we'd go to do dinner parties, go to each other's houses.
The four of them hang out together. They barbecue, they drink, they do everything together.
Suddenly, on February 19, 1996, the good times come to a screeching halt off a rural stretch of Michigan highway where Carol is found unresponsive in her car.
She maneuvered into the driveway. There was a fence in front of it, so we knew she had turned towards the house and then just didn't stop before she struck the porch.
They were administering CPR and were getting no response.
But while EMTs worked to save Carol's life, the mystery of her accident only deepened.
The ambulance guys started figuring out the hair wasn't helping her. Then they took some of the clothes off and figured out that there was a shotgun blast to her chest.
We continued with CPR efforts to revive her. We packed with the gauze and tried to hold the blood in, but there was just too much damage at that point to be able to save her.
They pronounced her dead then.
That changed the whole dynamic of the incident. This is obviously a homicide. Who could be involved? Why did she get shot and killed?
Coming up, investigators pieced together Carol's final moments.
It looked like someone was driving alongside her on that highway when they shot her.
This looks like it could be a targeted killing.
And a tale of bad blood and romantic rivals is revealed.
Right away, we started thinking about, we need to find the husband.
In rural St. Joseph County, Michigan, a quiet home has just turned into the scene of a homicide investigation.
It looked like a car crash at first, but then when police got there, they realized that a woman was shot to death inside that car.
The Michigan driver's license identified her as Carol Deck. She had massive trauma from a shotgun blast to her back, upper shoulder, which would have been fatal within moments.
We don't have that kind of crime in that area. You know, everybody was kind of stunned that it happened.
Police started really looking throughout this entire crime scene to sort of figure out what happened. During a canvass of the scene, we were able to locate a glass debris field from where we could tell a window had been broken and glass patterning the roadway. So we protected that so that we could get some more evidence from the actual road where we then believe the actual shooting happened. The debris field in the roadway was found probably about a quarter mile or less from where she actually turned into the driveway and then crashed into the house.
It does seem like Carol was trying to get help by continuing to drive to this person's house after she was shot.
Investigators doubt Carol's death was random.
It looked like someone was driving alongside her on that highway when they shot her.
Who are the players involved? We need to figure out who else was with her or if anyone else was with her. The area is basically a farming community lined with farm field and farm housing. Not very many people live there. This highway goes to a pretty rural area of town. This looks like it could be a targeted killing.
Investigators hope to locate an eyewitness to piece together Carol's final moments.
The people who called were concerned. They were obviously jostled awake by the car hitting the front porch. But as far as anger or scare or anything like that, no, it was just a normal, call.
You don't know who might be a suspect, so you want to get everybody that's there, get a name and what you were doing before this happened, and so on.
Michigan State Police investigators are looking at the neighbors in the area where Carol crashed. They figured out that no one really knew Carol, and it didn't make sense that any of those neighbors would target her or want to hurt her.
With no additional leads from the crime scene or its surroundings, investigators have their next destination in mind.
The registration for the vehicle provide us your home address. Right away, we started thinking about, we need to find the husband.
We knocked on the door and no answer at the door.
It's completely dark. It doesn't look like anybody's even home. And as they're leaving, a man sort of comes around the house, and it's Gary Neff.
He seemed kind of nervous. It was odd that he just showed up out of the blue.
Gary was asking in some form what happened to my wife before they had a chance to say anything to him.
His whole affect was off. The officers were considering him to be a suspect.
They're kind of asking, why does he think something is wrong with Carol? And Gary explains himself.
Carol worked at night, and she had just started this shift where she was going to be in the plant, I think by herself, starting from about 9 o'clock at night. And she said, well, call me when I get to work to make sure I got there all right, although I don't think it was very far. So he was unable to reach her, and he wanted to know what was going on.
Gary says his concern led to an investigation of his own.
Gary explained to investigators he figured out that something might be wrong with Carol and she might be in danger. He started looking around the surrounding area. He knows which way Carol takes to work, so he's kind of looking for any clues as to what might have happened to her.
Gary explains he called their friend Lisa Hofstetter for backup.
Gary and Carol only had one working car. Lisa drove up there to bring a vehicle to Gary that he could then use.
With Gary's initial statement easing investigators' suspicions, they finally revealed Carol's fate.
When police do tell Gary that his wife has been shot and killed, it was sad. It was something that really shook him.
As Gary reels from the news, a car pulls up to his house.
Lisa shows up at Gary and Carol's home, and at that time, investigators are still at the house talking to Gary. And when she finds out what happens to Carol, her first reaction is to comfort Gary and kind of be someone for him to lean on.
She was inquisitive. She wanted to know what happened and what was going on, and at that point, they didn't know about it.
While investigators allow Gary some time to process the news, they pull Lisa aside for a quick interview.
She tells the cops that, Carol adored Gary. They had a loving relationship.
However, Lisa explains the origin of Gary and Carol's relationship was shrouded in scandal.
Gary and Carol had a pretty steamy affair going on until his wife, Lori, actually caught them in the act together. And when she did that, she flipped out.
Police are quickly learning that this is a love triangle.
According to Lisa, it's possible the bad blood between Lori and Carol has now led to bloodshed.
There was implications that Lori was still angry that Carol had stolen her husband.
Coming up, a new red flag flies high.
Lori's a truck driver, and they figured out that one of Lori's routes that she drives on is the exact road where Carol was shot.
And layers of infidelity must the case.
Everybody was with everybody. It was just such an ongoing mess.
Carol found in Gary's truck a love letter.
hours after 28-year-old Carol Neff is gunned down along a Michigan highway, investigators have eyes on two potential suspects: her husband, Gary Neff, and his ex-wife, Lori.
Lori had caught Carol and Gary having an affair a year prior to Carol's murder. So it stands to reason that there was major resentment on Lori's behalf, so that she might have wanted to do something to Carol in retribution.
Investigators asked Gary to come to the station for a more formal interview.
The police asked Gary about his, relationship with Carol, and he says, it's a loving marriage. They are, happily in love, and he was devastated.
You made the statement, what happened to my wife? What do you think I did? Why did you do that statement?
They asked me what happened, they scared me on the scene. I didn't know what was going on. I'd heard ambulances going through, but didn't think anything about it.
Why were you going to check up on the wife?
Because she wasn't at work.
He tells them that he was home at the time of the murder. He was making calls to Carol's work and calls to Lisa to try and find her.
According to Gary, the couple had been on edge ever since they'd been receiving some threatening messages on their answering machine.
Carol was getting threatening phone calls, and she was pretty worried about that. So they were trying to figure out where they were coming from.
It's a man, an unidentified man, who's calling the residents and threatening Carol.
Gary says one phone call said something like, hey, you need to leave him alone or we're going to party, or something to that.
Gary tells them that this is something that's been happening for months.
She was scared, so she changed her phone number and she changed her hours so they didn't know when she was going to work and coming home.
When the messages kept coming, Gary and Carol had an idea who might be behind them.
He believes that Lori might be behind those threatening voicemails because he thinks that Lori never got over him.
As for Gary, initial doubts of his innocence have begun to dissolve.
Yesterday, did you shoot her? You did not shoot her.
It's God's honest truth.
Okay. Yesterday, you know for sure who shot you?
No.
Okay.
He does stick by his story, and I think that's one of the things that ultimately led investigators to rule out him as a suspect. He stuck to his story. He was only worried about his wife. They were happily married, and he made multiple calls that night looking for her and trying to find her.
We did a lot of telephone tracing to figure out what calls Gary made from who to who and what exact time. So there were some phone calls that had gone back and forth that were documented. It confirmed his alibi.
With Gary seemingly in the clear, investigators asked him for more details about his ex-wife, Lori.
They discovered Lori's also a truck driver, and they figured out that one of Lori's routes that she drives on is the exact road where Carol was shot.
But before they track down Lori, investigators pay a 2 a.m. visit to Carol's mom to deliver the tragic news.
For Carol's mother, this is not something that's taken easily. She's heartbroken by this. I mean, this is a daughter that she was close with.
Totally shocked because Carol, she's a very outgoing person of days, but she was never in trouble. She was never around people that were bad people. This is little tiny Mottville, Michigan. This doesn't happen here. And why her?
Despite her grief, Carol's mom makes a shocking accusation.
She said Carol found in Gary's truck a love letter written to him.
Carol found a card that was to Gary. That is the linchpin that Carol got a clue that Gary must be having some sort of an affair with Lisa.
Carol's mom says her daughter felt betrayed by someone she considered a friend.
I can see her threatening Lisa, telling her to stay away from Gary, but that's certainly something that Carol would have never found. I was definitely not in her nature. She, of course, she was livid, like all of us would be. And then soon after that, that's when Carol started getting threatening phone calls.
This complicates things for investigators. They thought Lori might be the one, but now they're focusing their attention on Lisa, who also could very well be involved in Carol's murder.
Investigators are shocked to learn the woman they'd just spoken with hours earlier may have been involved in Carol's death.
These people connected to Lisa really make them take a look at her as the murder suspect.
While officers work to bring Lisa in for a polygraph examination, investigators sit down with Gary's ex-wife, Lori.
The police asked her where she was on the night that Carol was murdered. She tells them that she was with her boyfriend all night.
Did you shoot Carol now? Did you plan with anyone to have Carol shot?
At first, it seems Lori is telling the truth, but deception is detected elsewhere.
They asked Lori if she was having an affair, and at that time her voice wavered, and they knew she was lying. She said, "No, I wasn't having an affair."
The police question her about it and ask her if she is having an affair with Gary, and she sort of laughs at them and basically says, "Well, no, I'm having an affair with Rob, Lisa's husband."
I don't even know how to get my head around that. Everybody was unfaithful with everybody else. Ron and Lori Watt, that relationship ended after a very short time.
After confirming Lori's alibi with her boyfriend, she is free to go.
Lori is never charged with Carol's murder. Investigators determined she had nothing to do with it.
However, her latest reveal leaves investigators' heads spinning.
Everybody was with everybody. It was just such an ongoing mess. And divorces, and you didn't know who was with who, week to week.
Detectives next revisit another tale of infidelity, the alleged affair between Gary Neff and Lisa Hofstetter. But they hit a wall.
Lisa and Gary each got attorneys and declined to speak to us any further.
While the move heightens suspicion around them, it also has investigators questioning what Lisa's husband, Ron Hofstetter, may know. On February 21st, 5 days after Carol's murder, authorities interview Ron at his home.
Ron's statement doesn't really give the police anything that they can work with.
Despite their suspicion of Ron and Lisa, investigators are far from proving anything.
They're trying to piece together, this entire love triangle at this point. And, the case turned days, turned into weeks, turned into months, and they really have nothing at this point.
8 months after Carol's murder, on November 1st, 1996, Michigan State Police detectives get a call from the sheriff in Elkhart, Indiana. The investigator says they have a man in custody named Dale Smith, who might be able to help with the stalled homicide investigation.
Lisa's brother-in-law, Dale Smith, had been charged with some sort of an assault offense in Indiana, and Indiana investigator was talking to him about that, and all Dale wanted to talk about was the Carol Neff murder.
Coming up, a shocking confession turns the investigation on its head. And an unexpected witness comes forward.
He just blurted out, "I did it. I'm going to tell everybody what happened."
In November of 1996, 8 months since the murder of Carol Neff, Michigan State Police detectives traveled to Indiana to interview Dale Smith, brother-in-law of murder suspect Lisa Hofstetter, hoping to connect Ron and Lisa to Carol's murder.
He said he was there, they talked about it, they planned it, but he was absent from the shooting. He said Ron drove 105 miles an hour down the toll road, brought him the guns, and told him to get rid of them.
Though Dale's statement reinforces investigators' belief that Lisa Hofstetter was behind Carol's killing, a destroyed murder weapon makes it difficult to prove.
It was a very excruciating, unpleasant time in our lives. I personally was very worried that this was never going to be resolved.
Finally, on April 3rd, 1998, 2 years after Carol's murder, Lisa shocked detectives when she contacted them.
About a year after Carol was murdered, Lisa divorces Ron, and then she ends up moving in with Gary.
This kind of raises some red flags because it doesn't look good for her at this point.
But now it seems Lisa has no reason to cover for her ex any further and decides to tell all. However, Lisa isn't able to offer any proof other than her word.
She was very manipulative. I felt Lisa controlled Ron, but knowing it and proving it are two different things. It's interesting, everyone blamed everyone else, but each person that then told us what happened gave more of the pieces of the puzzle.
Much like Dale's statement, Lisa's allegations don't add up to much without proof. Until a woman named Carrie Dembski calls the station.
After Lisa and Ron are divorced, Ron sort of moves on with his life and meets a woman named Carrie. Carrie, though, goes to police at one point because they had had a pipe bomb go off outside of their house.
Carrie tells police she thinks she knows why.
Carrie told the police that she suspected that bomb was to keep Ron quiet about something that he knew about Carol next month.
Carrie tells police that they've been receiving threatening phone calls from Lisa, and it did seem like Lisa was worried that Ron might say something about Carol's murder.
Carrie reveals that she and Ron are actually outside the station in the parking lot. But when detectives invite the shell-shocked couple inside, they find Ron less than forthcoming.
Ron had some sort of not very tight alibi.
His story is that he was home at the time of Carol's murder. They're sitting there wondering, well, what is this guy here for? They think that he's holding back. And it didn't make sense to investigators.
Ron leaves investigators with more questions than answers. But they refuse to let the case go cold. And 2 months later, their efforts finally pay off.
We invoked the potential of a federal grand jury. We never actually did it, but the fact that the feds were involved was intimidating to people. And I think people's conscience just got the better of them.
This was a big wake-up call for Ron. I think he decided that it was time to come clean.
We hired some attorneys, and they approached us and said we would like to maybe give some information. There was a meeting set up at the FBI office in Kalamazoo, and Ron was there with his lawyer. And finally, he just blurted out, "I did it. I'm going to tell everybody what happened." And then Ron pretty much laid it all out.
Now willing to cooperate, Ron explains that in February of 1996, he and Lisa were back on good terms after her affair with Carol's husband Gary. But she confided in him and her brother-in-law, Dale Smith, that Carol had been threatening her.
That lit Lisa's fire, so she decided, well, I'm going to threaten you. So she decided to get a hold of someone that was big and burly and who sounds intimidating, and I'm going to throw it right back at you. So there were phone calls made to her residence, some of which I understand she actually had conversations with, and some were actually recorded on her machine.
According to Ron, Lisa claimed the phone messages didn't work, and Carol was taking her threats a step too far.
Lisa perceived something, that Carol was somehow threatening the children. That's how I think Lisa got Ron, saying she may harm our children.
Fearful for the lives of his kids, Ron says he agreed Carol needed to go and decided to help Lisa's brother-in-law Dale carry out her plan.
Dale wanted to be a part of Lisa's family. He kind of felt like an outsider, and this was his way in.
Ron says Lisa stalked Carol to figure out her commute to work and back.
This is the highway that Carol takes to work every day. And once Carol was driving by, that's when they were supposed to take her out.
On February 19th, 1996, Ron says the trio put the plan into motion.
Ron was driving and Dale was in the passenger seat. They knew when she was going to be leaving and what route she was going to be taking.
Lisa was waiting outside of Carol's house and radioed to Ron and Dale that she was leaving and she was going to be driving by.
According to Ron, Ron was driving and they saw the car, they pulled out. Ron pulled up beside her and Dale pulled the trigger.
According to Ron, Dale thought the shot was a miss.
He said, I missed. Let's get out of here. And they took off. I don't think they actually believe they actually did it. But if the deed was done, shortly after that, Carol died.
Ron tells police that he was the getaway driver, but the actual shooter, the person who shot Carol to death, was Lisa's brother-in-law, Dale Smith.
Lisa manipulated all these people. When you step back and think, I got my husband and my brother-in-law to murder my boyfriend's wife, that's a difficult concept. I don't know what power she held over these people.
As for Gary, Ron says he knew nothing of the plan to kill his wife.
Police never found anything that indicated that Gary was a part of Carol's murder.
Ron says Lisa even had a plan for how they would get away with it.
Ron explains to investigators that Lisa really wanted to frame Lori for Carol's murder. Police believe that Ron is telling the truth. He legitimately fears for his life because of Lisa's actions, and they do think he is telling the truth.
As detectives prepare to make the long-awaited arrest, prosecutors hit a snag.
Prior to 2000, in Michigan, the spousal privilege was with the defendant. You could claim the spousal privilege.
If you were married at the time of the commission of crime, you couldn't testify against one another. They were married during that commission, so that communication is privileged information.
Coming up, Lisa won't go down without a fight.
She turned to the family and she said that she was innocent, that she didn't do this.
They all pointed the finger in a circular roundabout.
4 years after being gunned down on the highway in 1996, Carol Knapp's murder case remains open. Despite a confession from getaway driver Ron Hofstetter, a Michigan law stands in the way of justice.
There came to a point when Ron Hofstede wanted to talk about it, and there had to be a change in the Michigan law for spousal privilege.
It was just completely overwhelming. And especially because they couldn't arrest. It was just devastating.
While prosecutors work to change the law, they get multiple anonymous phone calls regarding the case, although they think they know exactly who is behind them.
I believe Lisa continued to write me anonymous letters and even called me a time or two anonymously because she just wanted to know what was going on and keep her fingers in it.
Eventually, the legal process pays off.
Prior to 2000, in Michigan, the spousal privilege was with the defendant. You were charged with a crime, and your wife was called as a witness. You could claim the spousal privilege and prohibit your wife from testifying against you. The law changed, and the privilege then became with the witness. So now she could claim the privilege and decline to testify without punishment or contempt. She could also choose to testify.
Prosecutors fight for the change to apply retroactively to Carol's case.
I appealed that ultimately all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court, and that took more than a year. And then the Supreme Court remanded it back to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals then ruled that Ron could testify.
On August 28, 2000, Michigan State Police finally arrest Lisa Hofstede, her ex-husband Ron, and her brother-in-law Dale Smith for Carol's murder.
It wasn't until late August